Hi, and welcome to Argentina. But today we're going to go straight into the national trekking capital, which is called El Chaltén. This small town is going to be located in the province of Santa Cruz within Los Glaciares National Park, and it's going to be surrounded by some of the most imposing landscapes in all of Patagonia. This city was founded relatively recently in 1985 as part of the border conflict between Chile and Argentina, because by this time the Argentine government decided to create this permanent settlement here in order to reinforce their sovereignty over the area. And so, out of nowhere, a town was born, and today this town receives thousands of visitors from all over the world. The name Chaltén comes from the Tehuelche language, which means smoking mountain. And this is because all of the indigenous people that used to live here thought that the Mount Fitzroy was actually a volcano, because this mountain was almost always covered in clouds that looked a little bit like smoke. And although this is not a volcano, this is going to be one of the most famous and spectacular mountains in all of South America. Some fun facts about El Chaltén is that first, it's very small. This city has less than 2,000 people living in it. But when you're visiting in high season, it's going to seem like there are many more people because the travelers are going to actually outnumber all of the locals. In addition to it, this city doesn't have a lot of reliable banks or ATMs, so it's important to bring cash from El Calafate. And another thing is going to be that the internet and Wi Fi signal over here is going to be very limited and unstable. So, this is going to be kind of like the perfect place to disconnect and immerse yourself in nature. Logistically, I stayed in El Chaltén for 3 days, and I think this is going to be the perfect time that you will need if you want to do the most popular and epic treks. But of course, for hiking lovers, you could stay much longer, even weeks, in order to explore all of the existing treks that there are. And before I tell you all about the possible treks that you can take, I'm going to go back to the basics. So the first question I get asked is, where should I stay? Well, this town is very, very small, and so literally all of the hotels are going to be in the same area. And the truth is, most of them are going to be relatively expensive, and you shouldn't expect a lot from where you're staying because there won't be really good infrastructure or like services over here. So, most accommodations, in my perception, were a little bit expensive to what they're offering, but I do recommend staying somewhere near the main street, which is going to be San Martin Avenue, and from there, basically just find whichever fits your budget, and you'll see that they're going to be okay places to stay. The second question I get asked is, when should you visit? And although Los Glaciares National Park is going to be open all year round, this is definitely going to be like a summer only destination because all of the trails and treks are going to become impossible to do in all of the other seasons. So the recommended time to visit is going to be between November and March, and I went in December because this is considered the best month to visit. Next question is, what's the weather like? Well, it's actually going to change a lot. During the days in the summer, it can reach 20 or 30 degrees Celsius, but at night it can drop to like 10 degrees Celsius. So you can see that it's going to be changing a lot. Bring plenty of different layers in order to change because at night it's going to become cold even during the summer. And next important question is, do you have to pay in order to enter? Yes. And this is something relatively new from the Malay government. And I don't actually think it's cheap. You don't have to pay to enter the city, but you do have to pay if you want to do any of the trekkings. So they are going to be selling 1 day, 3 day, or 7 day tickets, and you can buy them in a link that I'll be dropping in the comments. As of the date that I'm recording this episode, a 1 day ticket is going to cost $33 and a 3 day ticket is going to cost $66. And when I was there, it was like one of the first months when this has been implemented because this happened by the end of 2024. And this was a whole debate when they introduced it because all of the locals were protesting because before, entrance to all of the trekkings was free of charge. And although those new fees are going to be for the maintenance of the national park, like it usually is, historically they had never had to pay to go. And of course, if people have to pay extra money, Some of the times this affects locals. The last question is, how do you get to El Chaltén? Because as you're listening, this is going to be a very small city, and the only way to get here is by bus or like private transfer, and usually it's going to be from El Calafate. Most people are going to travel to El Calafate airport, and then they're going to take the bus or the transfer that will take around 3 hours and will drive along Route 40 with some incredible views until you reach El Chaltén. And well, this leads me to also talking a little bit about the route number 40 or Highway 40, because this is going to be one of the most scenic routes to drive in the entire world. This highway is going to cross the entire country from north to south, and it's going to follow the Andes mountain range, and it's also going to be one of the longest highways in the entire planet, because this highway starts in La Quiaca, which is the border that Argentina has with Bolivia, and it's going to cover more than 5,200 kilometers until it reaches Cabo Vírgenes in Santa Cruz, which is going to be actually very close to Ushuaia. And so by the end of the continent, basically you're going to have this route that will go through all of it all. And the interesting thing about Route 40 is not only the length, but the diversity of landscapes and cultures that it's going to cross. It's going to be like a trip through all of Argentina on a single road. And in the north, the route is going to pass through all of the colorful hills of Quebrada Humahuaca, the salt flats of Jujuy. Then it's going to go down to Mendoza. It's going to surround all of the vineyards with the imposing Andes mountain range. Then it's also going to cross near Aconcagua, which is the highest mountain in all of America. And further south, it's going to cross the immensity of Patagonia with all of the endless steeps, glaciers, lakes, and mountains. An interesting fact about this Highway 40 is that it will cross 21 national parks and it will connect more than 200 towns and cities. On top of that, it's going to reach some of the most extreme altitudes because in the Jujuy section, this highway is going to surpass 5,000 meters above sea level, being one of the highest roads on the world. So it's quite incredible that you get to traverse this epic highway in order to reach El Chaltén, even though you're only going to be driving through this highway probably like 3 hours. But anyway, once you're here and once you're reached, what can you do in this capital of trekking? Well, you'll find many different types of trekkings. There are going to be some multi-day trekkings, but most travelers only do single-day trips, and so I actually didn't look a lot into all of the possible multi-day ones, but it's something that I've heard that people do only when they're staying for a long time. For the single-day trips, there are going to be many options. You can find first many short trails, which are going to take for around 2 or 3 hours. They're all going to be easy, and they are going to be La Cascada Margarita, the Condores Trail, and Chorrillo del Salto Trail. All of these ones are highly recommended for someone who doesn't want to do a lot of trekking because, again, it's going to be 2 to 3 hours round trip, and they're all going to be considered easy. If you want something that will take around half of your day, then there are going to be other two treks. One of them is going to be Mirador del Torre, and the second one is going to be Laguna Capri. Both of them will take around 4 to 5 hours round trip total, and they're also considered easy, so this might be an option if you want to do a little bit more. But the most popular trails are going to be, of course, the full day ones, and they are going to be three: Loma del Pliegue Tumbado, Laguna Torre, and Laguna de los Tres. Of this, I did the last two as they are going to be the ones you can't miss when you visit. And of course, the most recommended one is Laguna de los Tres. So if you only have to pick one, do Laguna de los Tres. And then when you're going down, you can visit Laguna Capri. If you are going to choose two, you should do Laguna de los Tres and Laguna Torre. And once you're going into Laguna Torre, you'll also include Mirador Torre. So over here, if you do this too, basically you already have everything. And then if you stay 3 days like me, you can combine it with one of the other short trails, and you'll have all your itinerary for visiting El Chaltén. Although all of the tours can be done without a guide, I did go with a guide that I highly recommend. His name was Pablo, and I'm going to drop his WhatsApp number in the comments in case you want to text him for visiting, because Pablo helped me a lot in the Laguna de los Tres trekking. He was especially useful because he knows a lot. He does this tour like several times a week, so he knows this entire path like the back of his hand. And he helped me take breaks in strategic places, go up and down in the easiest parts, which you're going to see it's not going to be as intuitive. And he also explained a lot more about the rocks, the glaciers, the nature of the place, so I 100% recommend him. And again, my advice is always go local. Instead of hiring international company to do this trekking for you, you can just message a local and schedule it with him. It will be cheaper and he'll take all of the money for himself. So, highly recommend Pablo. He was my guide and he was awesome. Okay, so after this, let's go directly into the trekkings because in case you don't want to go with a guide, you need to understand how they work. And I'm going to start with Laguna Torre, which was the first one that I did. This walk is going to start directly from the town, and in the first kilometer, you're going to already see a lot of impressive landscapes. The trail is going to be around 18 kilometers round trip, which translates to around 11 miles round trip, and it will usually take between 7 and 8 hours total depending on your pace. Difficulty is considered moderate because it's not going to be very steep, but it does require good resistance because it's going to be long. The most special thing about this trekking is that all of the time when you're walking, you're going to have the views of Cerro Torre, which is one of the most iconic and challenging mountains in Patagonia. And in fact, what I heard is that for many alpinists, climbing Cerro Torre is actually considered more difficult than climbing Fitzroy due to the vertical walls and the extreme conditions that Cerro Torre has. During the walk, you're going to pass through many lenga forests, natural viewpoints, and open valleys where, if you're lucky, you can even see the condors that are soaring high up above. Approximately halfway there, you'll find Mirador del Cerro Torre, which, if you remember, is one of the half-day trips that I told you to take. So you could either go back here if you don't want to walk a lot, but you should for sure stop here if you're doing the full day thing because you're going to have some spectacular views of the entire valley and some of the granite spires. And then after you decide to continue from here because you're doing the full day trek, the final stretch is going to be a long and somewhat like windy straight path that will lead you directly to Laguna Torre, a glacial lake that has like milky gray water because it's a product of ice sedimentation. The most impressive thing is that on the surface of this lake, you're going to find small icebergs detached from the glacier, which are going to be reaching the shore. The landscape here, I consider it very unique because you'll find Cerro Torre in the background, you'll see the snowy mountains on the side, and you'll see the glacier in front of you. But again, what's particular here is that the lake is not going to be turquoise color as it usually is, but you will find all of these parts of the glacier that are floating around and melting, so it gives it a little bit of an epic touch. My guide explained that it always has this darker color because of the type of glacier that it has. Laguna Torre is going to receive all of the water directly from the glacier that's called Glaciar Grande, which translates to the big glacier, and this one's going to be at the bottom of the valley. And basically, when the ice is pushing all of the rocks and melting them, it's going to take all of this glacial flour or glacier sediments that are basically part of the mountains and it's pushing them into this lake. And so these particles are going to be so fine that they will remain suspended in the water. And that's what it's going to give it like a gray or greenish color into this thing. So it also shows to you the powerful strength that a glacier has when pushing all of this because it's literally kind of like breaking the mountain in order to bring the water here, which is really epic. So this darker color of Laguna Torre is going to be giving you a different and like wild sensation from all of the other lakes I've visited, so I highly recommend it. Some tips for visiting this trek is, of course, leave early in the morning because it's going to be a long day, so you don't want to start later. Also, you should bring food like a sandwich or snack. Most likely, either your hotel will sell a little box that has all of this, or you can make it yourself. And also bring plenty of water because although you'll find some streams, they are not going to be easy to access always, or they are not going to be as close to the glacier. They'll have a lot of sediments over here. So over here, I would recommend always bringing more water. And the most important thing, bring a lot of layers and a wind jacket because it tends to be very cold at the lake even in the summer. And now, let's move on into the most emblematic and famous trail in El Chaltén, which is going to be Laguna de los Tres. This is going to be the trek that every traveler dreams of doing because it will take you directly into the foot of Mount Fitzroy, which is probably the most iconic mountain in Argentina and one of the symbols of Patagonia. The walk is going to be longer and a little bit more demanding than Laguna Torre because this one is going to be around 21 kilometers, which is like 30 miles round trip. So it's going to usually take between 8 and 10 hours to complete all of this trek. This one is going to be rated as like moderate to high difficulty, especially because of the last section that's going to be quite steep. And if you were listening to my episodes about Torres del Paine in Chile, it's going to be kind of similar. You'll find that it's a relatively easy path until you reach to the moraine, and over here it will be very steep, and you have to do a lot of hiking on this last kilometer. But for my trail, here, since I was doing it with Pablo, Pablo recommended that we should start in the northern part of the trek because you'll find that the trek has like two different trails. One is going to start in El Chaltén, the other one is going to be starting up north. So what we did was we started up north, we took a transfer that would lead us there. You can also take a bus, or if you're doing the tour with Pablo, then he would arrange transfer till there. You'll start on the north, you'll hike to Laguna de los Tres, and then when you're coming back, you'll stop in Laguna Capri, and then you'll come back into El Chaltén directly. So this is going to be the way where you can see the most things, and so it's kind of a hack that I would recommend. Don't start the trek in El Chaltén, start it north. And you're going to see that even when you're going over there, you'll find a lot of incredible landscapes. And once you start, the landscape is going to change very fast. You'll pass from lenga forests to meltwater rivers to natural viewpoints, everything that will remind you that you're in the middle of the Glaciers National Park because everything will be beautiful around you. But the most intense part is going to come again towards the end of the hike because this last part is going to even have an elevation of like 400 meters in just 1 kilometer. So it's going to be very steep and it requires patience, good physical condition. But believe me, every step is going to be worth it. And when you finally reach the top, the landscape, I can't describe it. In front of you, it's going to be just a turquoise and icy water. Behind it, the imposing Mount Fitzroy, accompanied by all of these granite needles. And on a good and clear day, this is going to be probably one of the most spectacular views in the entire continent. If you also keep walking a little bit to the corner of the lake, you're going to find Laguna Sucia, which is going to be another glacial lagoon that has a greener color, and it's going to be located just below the glacier. Few people take the time to approach this side viewpoint, but it's totally recommended. Pablo took me there because once you already arrived to Laguna de los Tres, it's going to be very easy getting to this other viewpoint and you'll be able to see another lake. So, highly recommended. Even if you go without the guide, make sure to visit this viewpoint of Laguna Sucia. Again, I'll give you some tips. First one, leave as early as possible, even around 6 or 7 a.m. in the morning, because this trail is going to be very popular. So it's going to be very crowded and high season. And also, as I told you at the beginning, Mount Fitzroy is usually going to be surrounded by clouds. So if you go early in the morning, you might increase your chances of seeing Fitzroy clear because all of the clouds will often form towards the afternoon. It's essential to bring, of course, great footwear, trekking poles. They're going to be highly necessary for going down. And again, some food and snacks so you can have lunch in front of this lake. For this trek, though, I didn't bring as much water because over here you will find several sources of waters and streams that have extremely pure and clean water in order to refill your bottle. So literally, I only took like a small 500 milliliter bottle and I refilled it 3 times. I think because I'm used to drinking water that has minerals and comes from the mountains. But if you are picky about water, you should take your water. But if you're not, this water was delicious. It was probably one of the best waters that I've had. And well, during the last day that I was there, I told you I already did Laguna Torre, I did Laguna de los Tres. My third day, I was traveling in the afternoon. I didn't have a lot of extra time, so I only did Chorrillo del Salto walk. This one I did it without a guide because it's going to be very short, around 2 hours round trip. And So this is everything that I did in the capital of trekking. But if I'm going to rank on the top ones you cannot miss, of course, the first one would be Laguna de los Tres. The second one is going to be Laguna Torre. And the third one is going to be Chorrillo del Salto. But I recommend all three of them because the city is going to give you one of the most incredible landscapes that you will see in Patagonia. And also, another extra hack is that when I went, after I finished all of the hikes every day, I would always go to have ice cream on an ice cream shop that's called Domo Blanco. Over here, they have ice cream with flavor of el calafate, which is a fruit that you can only find in Patagonia. And this was probably one of the best ice creams that I've had in my life. I would go there every day after trekkings just to have ice cream. So, in case you want to go, this is also another of the hidden tricks that I have for you. Tell me in the comments if you have done other trails in El Chaltén that you want to recommend to more travelers, and tell us how your experience was. And share this episode with someone that you want to travel to Patagonia with. And if you can, also give me a review and subscribe because this will help me tremendously to continue giving you travel tips around the world. I'll see you next week where I'm going to take you to discover the most popular glacier in all of Patagonia. Enjoy your trip!